Hey, good morning, guys. Today we're going to be covering renewable energy. This is like one of my favorite topics to cover because it's looking at the future and planning and looking at the sustainability options. So this is a really exciting time, and we're seeing a lot of innovations in our economy right now when it comes to renewable energy. And there's also some countries that are completely renewable energy driven, like Iceland. A little bit different than the U.S., obviously with size and population and their geography there, but it's still a really cool idea and how they do things. So we're going to go through this pretty quickly. Then I'm going to go through the alternative energy project you guys will be working on as well. I know we've already started that, but I'm going to go through it again to make sure everybody's on the same page with what we need to accomplish with that research project. All right. So renewable energy is what it sounds like. It's energy. It's energy that comes from sources that are renewable that we can always have access to. So a couple of issues with non-renewables we're going to look at first, and we talked about this yesterday. A lot of the non-renewables obviously have a lot of limitations on their amounts. Like we talked about the other day, with we have about 40 years of crude oil left, right? And there's two main issues: dwindling supplies, obviously, but there's also a huge impact on the environment with pollution. When you burn these non-renewables, a lot of times, like you're burning fossil fuels, you're burning fossils. So you're releasing lots of carbon into the atmosphere. With the nuclear is pretty clean unless there's a meltdown, unless there's a problem. If there's a problem on nuclear, there's a big problem. So a couple of the non-conventional fossil fuels we've talked about, but we didn't talk about, I guess, it would be tar sands and oil shale. These are things that we access a lot when we're looking for crude oil. So those are things we look at when we're doing those. But remember, fossil fuels, these are the ones that power all these plants. Like our economy really is driven off a coal industry or fossil fuel industry. So, but as you see here in the middle, lots of pollution comes from this. And here's looking at how we talked about this. This is a lot of review, but how we use our energy, a lot of it comes from electricity, right? We use a lot of that in transportation. That's the two big ones. Industries is all three. They use coal, oil, and natural gas, but we talked about those a lot. All right, so now we're going to jump into some of the newer ideas and some of the renewable energies. The first one is hydropower, what it sounds like, hydro, water. So we're using that running water to spin a turbine, and that generates electricity. That's the whole idea, is to spin those turbines we talked about. Hydroelectric is economic. Up front, lots of cost to build a huge hydraulic dam, but there's a lot of low cost to run it. So you have some issues with building the reservoir. We talked about this before with building dams and the sedimentation. That's just some of the drawbacks of the hydroelectric industry. Fish ladders are a way to prevent this. As you can sort of see here, we talked about with the dams, how the fish can't swim back upriver. But right here, you can sort of see they can go back upriver if you build these along the sides of the dam and the hydroelectric dams. But it allows them to bypass that dam. Okay, and this is mostly up the northwest where the salmon come in and spawn upriver. We don't really have that as much down this way. The next is wind energy. This is similar to hydroelectric. You're using the wind to turn that turbine, which in turn gets that generator going and creates electricity. We have wind farms across America. We have a lot in the ocean and a lot in the Midwest and the plains areas. There are large numbers of these things clustered together that just collecting the wind. You're using the wind to drive energy. There are drawbacks. We talked about noise pollution, and these have obviously going to have some noise pollution. There is a low risk for killing birds. It's sad, but it happens. And also, it's a disruption of the scenery. Like if this house here, you have this beautiful hill in the backdrop. Now you have all these wind farms behind you, so it ruins a little bit the scenery of things. But they produce around 80 decibels of noise, so that's above what you want to be having in nature. That's one thing that we talked about noise pollution in the past. The next one is geothermal. We're going to look at this a lot on Friday. I'm going to be posting a video on Friday for you guys to watch. But geothermal is using the energy from the earth, right? It uses steam to spin a turbine and create electricity. There's injection wells and there's production wells. You can sort of see here the cold water gets pumped down and it's heated up by the Earth's natural temperature. A lot of this is in like the volcanic areas like Iceland and Hawaii. And then steam gets shot back up and spins a turbine and in turn gets the electricity going. No pollution is done here, okay? There's no pollution from this, but there's high initial cost. Obviously, you're building this huge new process and this new electrical plant. A lot of cost. And it can cause earthquakes. It has a little issue of frackling sort of stuff going. So it can cause earthquakes, but it's rare. It does that. Solar energy, one thing we talked about in class a lot. This is the Earth has the sun. The sun is always there for us. So this energy is very available to us, right? It's an enormous amount of energy. So we have a lot of energy we can collect here. We use these solar panels. You might see around Walton County sometimes. Walton EMC has some of these around. So the heat is absorbed. It's used to boil water into steam, and then it spins a turbine, just like everything else. Then you also have photovoltaic cells. These capture the energy and convert it directly to electrical currents.